On New Year's Eve, my son-in-law said, "You're too old to be useful. We're putting you in a nursing home." My daughter. She stood there, silent, not a word. I was 75, broken and visible in my own daughter's home. So I vanished into the night with a suitcase and $3,000 they didn't know I had. When I sat crying at the bus station, a young woman asked if I was okay. I told her everything. Then she made a phone call and said, "I found him." What happened next changed everything. I'm grateful you're here to witness this story of courage and standing up for yourself. Tell me, where are you watching from right now? What time is it in your part of the world? Comment below. I stood in the doorway of what had been my bedroom for the past 12 years, listening to champagne corks popping downstairs. Laughter drifted up through the floorboards. Kate's friends, their voices bright with New Year's excitement. I wasn't invited. The room was small, a narrow bed, a stuck drawer, a single window overlooking the backyard where string lights twinkled over the party below. Earlier, someone had brought me a sandwich on a paper plate. I'd eaten it alone while they sampled hors d'oeuvres downstairs. "Dad," Kate's voice from the stairs, "can you come down for a minute?" My daughter. 45 now, in a black dress that probably cost a month of groceries. When had she started summoning me like this? I made my way downstairs, hand on the railing. Trevor stood in the living room, Kate beside him. She wouldn't meet my eyes. "Aiden," Trevor never called me Dad. "We need to talk." Something in his tone made my stomach drop. "Kate and I have been talking." He set his champagne glass on the marble coffee table, the one I'd helped pay for. "We think it's time to make some changes." Kate's hand fluttered to her throat. She said nothing. "We're putting you in a nursing home." His words were crisp, matter-of-fact. "You're too old to be useful." The words hit me like a physical blow. I looked at Kate, waiting for her to say something. Anything. She stared at the floor. "Dad, it's—" Her voice cracked and died. Trevor's hand landed on her shoulder. Possessive, final. Behind them I caught a glimpse of Jacob, my 18-year-old grandson. His face was stricken. "Grandpa," he mouthed. But when Trevor glanced back, Jacob disappeared. Too old to be useful. I'd raised Kate alone after her mother died, worked 2 jobs so she could go to college, taught elementary school for 35 years, and this was how it ended. Put away like a broken appliance. "I see," I heard myself say. "When?" "After the holidays. We've already looked at a few places." I stopped listening. Something shifted inside me, cold and clear. I thought of the house in Asheville, my parents' old place left to me 8 years ago. I'd never told Kate about it. Never mentioned the $3,000 I'd saved in an account Trevor didn't know existed. "I understand," I said quietly. Relief flooded Kate's face. She thought I was accepting it. But I wasn't. I wouldn't go to any nursing home. I wouldn't let them erase me. I was leaving tonight. While they celebrated downstairs, while they laughed and counted down to a new year, they thought would be simpler without me, I would disappear. They didn't know about Asheville. They didn't know about the money. They thought they'd accounted for everything. They hadn't. I had one thing they didn't know about, and tonight I would vanish. Less than an hour later, I was in my room, hands trembling as I packed. My old suitcase lay open on the bed. I moved quickly a few closed toiletries, the photograph of Kate as a child, my mother's quilt. The sting of Trevor's words still burned, but worse was the silence, Kate's silence. I sat at the desk and wrote quickly. "I won't be a burden anymore. Don't look for me." I left the note on the pillow. Through the window, fireworks popped in the backyard. Laughter, music. The countdown to midnight had started. A new year they'd celebrate without me. I picked up my suitcase and opened the door. The hallway was dark. Downstairs, voices, glasses clinking, someone shouting numbers. 10, 9, 8. A door cracked open. Jacob. My grandson stepped into the hall, eyes red-rimmed. We looked at each other. "Grandpa," he whispered. "I'm sorry." "It's okay," I said, though it wasn't. He glanced toward the stairs, then reached into his pocket and quickly pressed something into my coat. "Keep this safe." Before I could ask, he was gone. 765. I made my way downstairs, past the living room, past the kitchen. No one saw me. No one had seen me in months. The front door closed behind me with a soft click. Outside, January air bit at my face. I called a taxi. 20 minutes later, I was at the Greyhound station on West Trade Street. The building was nearly empty, a few strangers scattered across plastic chairs. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, harsh and unforgiving. I bought a ticket to Asheville. Departure 10:47. It was 9:15. I had $3,000 saved money in an account Trevor didn't know about. It was enough. It had to be. I sat down, suitcase at my feet, and stared at the departures board. That's when it hit me. The betrayal, the cruelty, the years of making myself invisible, the daughter who'd chosen her husband over her father. 75 years old, running away from my own family. The tears came without warning, great heaving sobs that shook my whole body. I tried to muffle them, ashamed, even now, to take up space with my grief. I couldn't stop, couldn't breathe. Everything I'd held in for months, years, poured out in that fluorescent-lit bus station while strangers pretended not to notice. This was it. This was what my life had become. An old man crying alone, waiting for a bus to nowhere. I looked up through blurred vision. A young woman stood before me, concern on her face. She wore scrubs under her winter coat, dark hair pulled back. "Sir, are you okay?" I looked up through my tears. A young woman in scrubs sat down beside me, her face etched with concern. "I'm Andrea," she said gently. "Are you okay? Can I call someone for you?" I shook my head. There's no one to call. She didn't leave. Most people would have walked away. But Andrea stayed, her hand resting lightly on the bench between us. "What happened?" she asked. I hesitated. Strangers didn't care about old men crying in bus stations, but something in her eyes, warmth, genuine concern, made me speak. "My son-in-law decided I should go into a nursing home," I said quietly. "He said I was too much of a burden." My daughter didn't say a word. She just stood there. Andrea's expression shifted. Not pity, understanding. "So I left," I continued. "I'm not going to any nursing home. I have a place I can go, a house I inherited. But right now I'm just trying to figure out how I got here." "What's your name?" she asked. "Aiden," I said. "Aiden Whitfield." Her eyes widened slightly. "Whitfield," she repeated. I nodded. "I was an elementary school teacher. Taught for 35 years. Lincoln Elementary mostly. Been retired about 12 years now." Andrea went very still. "Lincoln Elementary, around 1985. "Yes," I said, surprised. "How did you—" "My father went to Lincoln," she said slowly. "He's told me stories about a teacher who changed his life, a teacher named Whitfield. I tried to remember. 40 years. Hundreds of faces. Christopher was a common name. I'd taught at least 5 or 6 boys named Christopher over the years." "Your father's name?" I asked. "Christopher Bennett." The name stirred something, a shadow of a memory, but nothing clear, nothing certain. I'm not sure," I admitted. "I taught so many students. Christopher Bennett?" I shook my head. I wish I could say I remembered, but— "It's okay," Andrea said quickly. But there was something in her voice, a quiet certainty. "He remembers you. He's been looking for you." She pulled out her phone. "Please stay here," she said urgently. "Please, I need to make a call." Andrea stepped away, phone pressed to her ear. I caught fragments, urgent, excited. "Dad, I found him." "Yes, I'm sure. The bus station. You need to come now." I stared at her, bewildered. "Found who?" She returned, sitting beside me. "My father's on his way. Christopher Bennett. He's been looking for you for a long time. Your father. He was my student. When he was little," Andrea said. "He's never forgotten you." I tried to remember. 40 years. Hundreds of students. Faces blurred like watercolors in rain. "He's a civil rights attorney now," Andrea continued. "He has a family, 2 kids. But he talks about you all the time. About the teacher who believed in him when no one else did." "No," Andrea said firmly. "You didn't just anything. You changed his life." We sat in silence. Around us the bus station hummed. Announcements echoed. A mother scolded her child. 20 minutes passed, maybe 30. Then the glass doors opened. He was tall, broad-shouldered, wearing a dark suit despite the late hour. His hair was graying at the temples, but it was his eyes, dark searching, that caught me. He saw me and stopped. Then he walked forward, slow, deliberate. "Mr. Whitfield." His voice cracked on my name. I looked at him, really looked. The shape of his jaw, something in his eyes. "Do you remember a boy who couldn't afford shoes? A boy whose clothes were always patched and worn?" A memory stirred, faint, distant. A small child with gaps in his teeth and shoes held together with duct tape. "Christopher, little Christopher." I struggled to remember. So many children, so many years. He nodded, tears streaming down his face. "You helped me when no one else would. When I was invisible to everyone else, you saw me. You've been looking for me for a long time," he said simply. I stared at the man before me, the successful attorney in the expensive suit, and tried to reconcile him with the memory of a small, frightened child. "You're not getting on that bus," Christopher said firmly. "Not tonight." You're coming home with me. I don't want to be a burden. Mr. Whitfield, his voice was gentle but unyielding, you gave me hope when I had nothing. Please, let me return the favor. I looked at Andrea standing beside her father. I looked at the bus schedule board. I looked at the ticket in my hand. And I nodded. Christopher picked up my suitcase as if it weighed nothing. Come on, he said. My wife and kids are waiting, and tomorrow everything starts to change. 20 minutes later, we pulled into a quiet neighborhood. Large homes lined tree-shaded streets. Christopher's house stood at the end of a cul-de-sac, modest but welcoming warm light glowing from the windows. Andrea called ahead. Christopher said, Allison's waiting. The front door opened before we reached it. A woman with kind eyes and graying hair rushed out. Welcome home, Mr. Whitfield, she said, embracing me gently. Chris has told me so much about you. I stood there stunned by the warmth. I'm Allison, she said. You must be exhausted and hungry. Come inside. The living room was simple but comfortable. A worn couch, family photos on the walls, the smell of coffee still lingering in the air. Allison disappeared into the kitchen and returned with a bowl of soup and fresh bread. It's not much, she said, but it's warm. I sat at the kitchen table, Andrea on one side, Christopher on the other, and ate slowly. The soup was simple, perfect. Tell me what happened, Christopher said gently. Everything. So I did. I told them about the 12 years living with Kate and Trevor, how I'd gradually become invisible in my own daughter's home, how I'd sold my house years ago and given them the money for their down payment, believing we'd pool our resources that I'd always have a home with them. But Trevor controlled everything, I said quietly. My Social Security checks, the bills, all of it. And tonight, he said I was going into a nursing home. Christopher's expression darkened. Mr. Whitfield, what they've done is called elder abuse, financial exploitation, emotional abuse, and attempting to place you in a facility against your will that's unlawful confinement. I'm a civil rights attorney, he continued. I specialize in cases like this, and tomorrow we start fighting back. I don't want to cause trouble. You won't be in trouble, Christopher said firmly. They will. He pulled out his phone. With your permission, I'd like to make a call. I nodded. Christopher dialed. The phone rang 4 times before clicking to voicemail. His voice shifted professional, sharp, unyielding. This is Christopher Bennett, attorney at law. Your father, Mr. Aidan Whitfield, is safe and currently under my legal protection. All future contact regarding Mr. Whitfield must go through my office. You will be hearing from me soon. He ended the call. She'll call back, Christopher said. Probably first thing tomorrow morning. But she won't be calling you. She'll be calling me. Allison showed me to the guest room. Clean sheets, a soft pillow, a lamp on the nightstand. You're safe here, she said. Sleep well, Mr. Whitfield. I lay in the darkness, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt safe. Maybe I thought there was still hope. I didn't know it yet, but Kate would call first thing tomorrow morning. And when she did, nothing would ever be the same again. I woke on New Year's morning to sunlight streaming through unfamiliar windows. For a moment, I forgot where I was. Then it all came back: the bus station, Christopher, this house. Safety. Coffee drifted upstairs, bacon sizzling. At Kate's house, I'd wake early and stay quiet, avoiding everyone. Here, voices and laughter echoed from below. I went downstairs. Christopher and Allison were making breakfast together. Pancakes, eggs, bacon spread across the counter. Good morning, Allison said warmly. Andrea's coming by later with the kids. Kate called at 7 this morning, Christopher added casually. Multiple times. I didn't answer. She'll call back. We sat down to eat. Real food. A real family breakfast. Halfway through, the doorbell rang. Andrea arrived with 2 children, a boy and a girl, both looking at me with wide, curious eyes. This is Gabriel, Andrea said. He's 9. And this is Natalia. She's 7. Gabriel studied me carefully. Are you really the teacher who helped Grandpa Chris? I smiled. I just did what a teacher should do. Natalia was more direct. Grandpa said you were a hero. I shook my head. Your grandfather's the hero, not me. What was Grandpa like when he was little? Gabriel asked. I thought back. 40 years. He was quiet, but kind. He always helped his classmates. He loved books, used to stay after school just to read in my classroom. The children listened fascinated. For the first time in months, I felt valued, welcomed, like I mattered. After lunch, Christopher turned to me. Mr. Whitfield, tell me about the house in Asheville. I inherited it from my parents 8 years ago. It's just been sitting there empty. Christopher stood. Let's go see it. Right now. 2.5 hours later, we pulled into a small mountain town. Trees lined the streets. The air was cooler, cleaner. 42 Maple Grove Road sat at the end of a quiet street. The house was old paint, peeling yard overgrown, but the structure looked solid. It's such a mess, I said quietly. Christopher pulled out his phone. I know someone who can help. 30 minutes later, a pickup truck pulled up. Harold Gibson, a local contractor, stepped out. Harold walked through the house. Good bones, he said finally. Needs paint a new kitchen, electrical work, maybe $55,000 to make it really beautiful. My heart sank. I don't have that kind of money. I do, Christopher said firmly. Consider it an investment, Mr. Whitfield. I can't let you. You gave me a future when I had nothing. Christopher interrupted. This is nothing compared to that. Tears blurred my vision. Harold, when can you start? Next week. Christopher nodded. Do it. On the drive back, the sun was setting behind the mountains. Orange and pink light stretched across the sky. I don't know how to thank you enough, I said. Christopher glanced at me. You already did. 40 years ago. We drove in silence. What happens now? I asked. Christopher's expression shifted, professional focused. Now we start the legal work. But first we have some important calls to make. A few days later I found myself on the 15th floor of a glass tower in uptown Charlotte. Bennett and Associates. The office where Christopher promised we'd start fighting for justice. The receptionist, Gloria Stevens, her nameplate read, greeted me warmly. Mr. Whitfield, Mr. Bennett has been talking about you all weekend. Go right in. Christopher's office was professional but personal. Law books lined the walls, but family photos sat on every surface. Andrea at graduation. Gabriel and Natalia at the beach. A wedding photo of Christopher and Allison, young and hopeful. Have a seat, Christopher said, gesturing to a leather chair across from his desk. He opened a yellow legal pad. Let's go through everything. Financial exploitation first. You sold your house, correct? 10 years ago, I said. Kate said they needed help with a down payment. I wanted to help. How much? I hesitated. $95,000. Christopher wrote it down. Was your name added to the deed, the property title? I don't know. Trevor handled all the paperwork. We'll find out, Christopher said. But let's assume it wasn't. That means you gave them $95,000 with the promise of a home. They didn't keep that promise. With interest over 10 years, they owe you at least $115,000. The number stunned me. $115,000. Then there's emotional abuse, Christopher continued. Isolation, degradation, threatening to place you in a facility without your consent. Under North Carolina elder abuse laws, what they did is criminal. I don't want to hurt Kate. This isn't about hurting her, Christopher said gently. This is about protecting you and holding them accountable. A knock on the door. Gloria stepped in. Mr. Bennett, there's an urgent email from Jacob Montgomery. Christopher opened his laptop, turned the screen toward me. Subject, Grandpa needs to hear these. Body. Dear Mr. Bennett, I'm Jacob Aiden's grandson. I should have done this sooner. I should have spoken up. But I was too afraid of my father. These recordings, maybe they can help now. I'm sorry I wasn't braver, Jacob. 6 audio files were attached. Christopher clicked the first one. Timestamp 6 months ago. Trevor's voice, cold, clear, unmistakable, filled the room. He's useless, Kate. A useless old man taking up space in our house. Kate's voice small. Trevor, please. No, I'm done with this. He's nothing but a burden to this family. Christopher played the second file. 4 months ago. We should have put him in a home years ago. It's costing us money to keep him here. The third file. 2 months ago. Your father is draining our resources and our lives. I want him gone. I sat frozen, my hands trembling. Each recording was worse than the last. 6 months of evidence. 6 months of cruelty captured in Trevor's own voice. At the bottom of the email Jacob had written. I used my phone to record every time Dad started talking about Grandpa. I have evidence from the past 6 months. I'm 18 now. I can testify in court if needed. Tears blurred my vision. He's just a kid. He shouldn't have had to go through this. He's brave, Christopher said. And this is evidence. Concrete, undeniable proof of emotional abuse. Now they can't claim it was a misunderstanding. We have Trevor's own words. Another knock. Gloria opened the door. Mr. Bennett, Kate Montgomery, is on line 3. She says she needs to speak to her father immediately. Christopher looked at me. Are you ready? I took a deep breath, nodded. Let's begin. Christopher pressed the button. Kate's voice filled the office high, panicked. I want to talk to my father, now. Mrs. Montgomery, this is Christopher Bennett, attorney at law. All contact regarding your father must go through this office. This is insane. You can't keep me from my father. I'm not keeping you from him. He's choosing not to engage with you. Who are you? Are you trying to steal his money? Christopher's voice turned cold. Mrs. Montgomery, you're accusing a senior partner at a major law firm of exploitation while demonstrating the exact controlling behavior that drove Mr. Whitfield to seek legal help. Silence. I just want to talk to my father. I'm here, Kate, I said. Dado, thank God, come home. We can talk about this. A misunderstanding. Trevor said I was too old to be useful, and you stood there and said nothing. He didn't mean it. He was stressed. Best for me or best for you? When was the last time you asked me what I wanted, Kate? You let him erase me, day by day, until I became invisible in my own daughter's home. I ate dinner alone. I heard Trevor call me a burden, and you never defended me. Kate was crying. I didn't know what to do. You could have stood up for me. Christopher leaned forward. Mrs. Montgomery, let me tell you something about your father. 40 years ago in 1985, I was a 10-year-old boy in his 5th grade class at Lincoln Elementary. I stared at Christopher. What was he doing? My father was a coal miner. We had nothing. I came to school with shoes that had holes in them. Your father didn't just buy me new shoes. He secretly applied for a scholarship on my behalf, wrote the letters himself, paid the $50 fee out of his own pocket. My breath caught. I got that scholarship. It paid for middle school, college, and law school. Everything I have today started with what your father did. I only found out when I was 30, digging through old school records. I saw his handwriting on the application, his signature on the check. I spent 20 years looking for him. Christopher's voice hardened. Your father changed my life. He gave me a future when I had nothing, and you threw him away like he was nothing. Kate's sobs echoed through the speaker. Background noise. Trevor's voice. Give me the phone. This is ridiculous. You can't keep him from us. Christopher's voice turned to ice. Mr. Montgomery, I have 6 months of recordings of you calling Mr. Whitfield useless, a burden, and a waste of money. Your own son recorded them. Trevor went silent. Elder abuse is a criminal offense in North Carolina. Would you like me to file charges? Mr. Whitfield contributed $95,000 toward your house. His name was never added to the deed. You have 10 business days to repay $115,000 principal plus interest, or I file a civil suit. You can't. 10 days, Mr. Montgomery. The clock starts now. Kate, I said. Dad, please. I love you. You're my daughter. Nothing changes that. But I won't accept being mistreated, not by anyone, not even you. When you're ready to apologize, truly, apologize for what you did, I'll be here. Until then, I need space to heal. Christopher ended the call. Silence filled the office. I was trembling, but I felt lighter, freer. You did it, Mr. Whitfield, Christopher said quietly. You stood up for yourself. I don't know if she'll ever forgive me. You're not the one who needs forgiveness. 3 months later, everything had changed. 3 months passed. Winter gave way to spring, and with it, everything had changed. Kate and Trevor were divorced. The split had been bitter. Trevor blamed Kate for choosing her father over her husband. She'd moved out. He'd kept fighting for the house and lost. Kate had transferred $115,000 into an account in my name. There was no apology, just a brief email from her lawyer confirming the transaction. Trevor had lost the house in the divorce settlement. He'd moved into a small apartment across town. I heard he was selling insurance now. Jacob had turned 18 and changed his legal address. He refused to speak to his father. The last I'd heard, he was attending community college and working part-time at a bookstore. He'd texted me once, "I'm proud of you, Grandpa." I'd cried when I read it. Harold Gibson had finished the renovation in 10 weeks. Christopher had paid the $55,000 just as he'd promised. The house had been transformed. Fresh white paint covered the walls inside and out. The wood floors gleamed. The kitchen had new appliances I was still learning to use. The garden had been cleared, and replanted flowers were beginning to bloom along the fence line. The porch had been rebuilt. It was perfect for morning coffee. I'd moved in 2 weeks ago. 42 Maple Grove Road was finally home. Not a guest room in someone else's house. Not a place where I had to stay quiet and invisible. Home. Every morning, I woke to sunlight streaming through my bedroom window. I made coffee in my kitchen, and sat on my porch watching birds at the feeder Christopher had installed. No one told me to be quiet. No one made me feel like I was taking up too much space. No one called me useless. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. Gladys Norton, my 82-year-old neighbor, had brought over coffee cake the day I moved in. She'd lived on this street for 50 years and knew everyone. "Welcome home, Mr. Whitfield," she'd said. "It's good to have life in this house again." The librarian at the Asheville Public Library had been thrilled to learn a retired teacher had moved to town. She'd asked if I'd be willing to volunteer reading to children on Tuesday and Thursday afternoons. I'd said yes immediately. It felt good to be useful again, to be wanted. Christopher, Allison, Andrea Gabriel, and Natalia came for dinner every Sunday. The kids had started calling me Grandpa Aiden and Bibris. Gabriel always wanted to hear stories about when their real grandpa was little. Natalia insisted on helping me in the garden. For the first time in years, I felt truly alive, purposeful, seen. On a bright spring morning, I was in the garden planting tomatoes. The doorbell rang. I wiped my hands on my jeans and walked to the front door. When I opened it, I froze. Kate stood there. She looked different. Thinner. Dark circles under her eyes. She was wearing jeans and a simple sweater instead of the designer clothes she usually favored. She looked smaller, broken. "Hi, Dad." Her voice was small, broken. I stood in the doorway, my hand still on the knob. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. "How did you find me?" I asked finally. "It's a small town," Kate said. "I've known you were here for a month. I just didn't know if you'd see me." I considered, then stepped aside. "Come in." She followed me into the living room. New furniture, simple but comfortable. Sunlight streaming through the windows. Kate looked around. "It's beautiful, Dad. Mom and Grandma would be proud." I didn't respond. Her hands were trembling. "I didn't come here to make excuses." Kate took a deep breath. "I came to apologize. And I mean it. Not 'I'm sorry you were hurt.' Not 'I'm sorry this happened.' I'm sorry for what I did." Tears began to fall. Trevor controlled me, little by little. I was afraid of losing him, afraid of losing the life we'd built, afraid of losing everything I thought made me successful. But that's not an excuse. You raised me alone after Mom died. You worked 2 jobs so I could go to college. You sacrificed everything, your time, your money, your dreams for me. You never missed a parent-teacher conference. You made every birthday special, even when we could barely afford it. You taught me that family meant showing up. Her voice broke. "And I repaid you by standing silent when Trevor called you useless. I watched you get smaller in that house. I saw you eat alone. I heard what Trevor said. And I did nothing." She was sobbing now. "Jacob won't speak to me. He said I threw away the best person in my family. He's right. I chose a man who didn't deserve me over a father who gave me everything. I don't know if you can forgive me. I don't deserve it. But I need you to know I understand now. I see what I lost, what I threw away. And I am truly, truly sorry." The silence stretched long. I sat there looking at my daughter, this woman who'd once been a little girl who held my hand, crossing streets, who'd cried on my shoulder after her first heartbreak, who'd walked across a graduation stage while I cheered louder than anyone. "I love you, Kate," I said finally. "I will always love you. You're my daughter. Nothing changes that. But love doesn't mean accepting mistreatment." Kate nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I need to see sustained change," I continued. "Not panicked apologies. Real change over time. Maybe we can try again, slowly, monthly coffee, calls when you need to talk." My voice turned to steel. "But Kate, if you ever make me feel small again, if you let anyone else make me feel small, I'm done. There won't be a second chance." "I understand," she whispered. "I have a life here now," I said. "Friends, purpose, peace. I'm not the man who left your house on New Year's Eve anymore. I don't wait for someone to tell me I'm valuable. I know I am." Kate's voice broke. "I see that, and I'm glad." She wiped her eyes. "Can I call you next week?" "Yes," I said. "But Kate, we rebuild slowly, on my terms." She stood. "Thank you for seeing me, for listening." I walked her to the door. Kate's car pulled out of the driveway. I stood on the porch watching until it disappeared around the corner. I felt complicated. Hope, yes, but also caution, sadness, and underneath it all, peace. I'd set my boundaries, and they would hold. After Kate left, I stood on the porch for a long time watching the empty road. Then I went inside and called Christopher. 2 rings. "Mr. Whitfield, are you okay? Kate was here." And she apologized. Really apologized. No excuses, just regret. "How do you feel?" I considered. Hopeful, cautious, sad for what we lost, but grateful for what I found. Those are healthy feelings, Christopher said. Boundaries are love, Mr. Whitfield. Don't forget that. I heard children's voices in the background. Sunday dinner still on? He asked. The kids made something at school they want to show you. I smiled. I'll be there. And Mr. Whitfield. You did well, standing up for yourself. Not everyone can do that at any age. After the call, I walked out to the garden and sat on the bench Christopher had built for me. I thought back to New Year's Eve. A broken old man crying at a bus station, believing he was useless, too old, a burden, ready to disappear into a rundown house and fade away. Now an independent man in a beautiful house he owned, a community that valued him, a purpose reading to children at the library being Grandpa Aiden to Gabriel and Natalia. A friend, no a family, in Christopher. The irony wasn't lost on me. 40 years ago I'd helped a poor boy afford shoes. I'd never thought about it again. Just did what needed to be done. That small act of kindness had come back when I needed it most. Christopher the boy with the torn shoes had become the man who saved me. I'd learned something these past few months. Kindness is never wasted. It plants seeds that grow in ways you can't predict. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's necessary. It's self-respect. Your worth doesn't diminish with age. Society may forget that, but you must not. And it's never too late to start again. At 75, I'd thought my life was over. Turns out it was just beginning. Spring flowers were blooming in the garden I'd planted with my own hands. This afternoon at 2, I'd be at the library reading Where the Wild Things Are to a group of 6-year-olds. Sunday, Christopher, Allison, Andrea, Gabriel, and Natalia would come for dinner. I'd cook pot roast, my mother's recipe. Next week, coffee with Kate. Maybe. We'd see how it went. The week after, Harold had mentioned a community theater group that needed a set painter. I might try my hand at it. The future was wide open. Mine, full of possibilities I'd never imagined. I stood and looked at my house, my garden, my life. Trevor said I was too old to be useful. I said aloud to no one. He was wrong. I wasn't too old. I wasn't useless. I wasn't a burden. I was exactly where I belonged, living the life I deserved. Looking back on my true story, I see what I couldn't see. Then I'd spent years believing age made me worthless. Don't be like me. Don't wait until you're 75 to realize your value. Grandpa's stories like mine happen every day, silent, invisible, erased. God placed Christopher in my path when I needed him most. The boy whose shoes I'd bought 40 years ago came back to save me. God's timing is never accidental. Here's what these grandpa stories teach. Setting boundaries isn't cruel, it's survival. Your worth doesn't expire, and kindness plants seeds only God can orchestrate. My true story isn't unique. Too many grandpa stories end in nursing homes and silence. Mine didn't because I finally stood up. This true story proves it's never too late to reclaim your life. You deserve better. You always did.